Ukraine has forced its way onto the agenda of this G20 summit.
Well, we've got a lot going on here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got Mark Carney at the G20. We got Donald Trump laying out a plan for Ukraine. Let's jump into this. We got Chrystia Freeland back in the news, says Freeland will remain Ukraine envoy after starting new job at Rhodes Trust. What? So she's going to keep her job and make money, yet she's moving on to this Rhodes Trust job. Something funny is going on here. Obviously, she's double dipping off of taxpayers, but something else is funny with this situation. Rhodes Trust is an eminent global institution, and she will thrive as its CEO while continuing her important work towards a better future for Ukrainians and peace in Europe. Yeah, right. How can she be CEO and Ukraine envoy? This is just a free paycheck from taxpayers. We're not stupid. Triple dip, MP, Ukraine envoy, and Rhodes Trust. He is correct. Triple dip, because she is still an MP. What an absolute joke. What's also a joke, we got Chris Workington posting this, the conservative whip. We've got iPolitics saying Prime Minister Mark Carney is on his way to Abu Dhabi, seeking more ties in fields like artificial intelligence with the United Arab Emirates, just as the country stands accused of fueling a G word in Sudan. Then we've got the Toronto Star posting this. Brookfield launches $100 billion in AI infrastructure. $100 billion investment program to be deployed across a full AI value chain. Yeah, so Brookfield was there 6 days earlier. We're getting a bigger scope of what's going on here. This is AI, but it's also critical minerals. Absolutely despicable. And he knows he's untouchable. He's not even tried to hide his conflicts anymore. Yeah, that's what's happening. Carney doesn't care. So Carney thinks AI infrastructure can be powered by windmills. Moving ahead, days later, CBC still running panels on floor crossers. This time they brought in this guy who wrote a book on it. And well, this didn't go to plan because he starts criticizing the liberals.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that's confusing for me, because we're all talking about, or at least the media and others, about, how many other conservatives might be willing to cross the floor. Yeah. The question that I don't think any of us are talking about is, what's it like to be a Liberal MP, particularly one who was elected during the Trudeau years, as part of a caucus now that is pushing forward an agenda that you would have absolutely opposed previously? There's certainly got to be Liberal MPs in there who are thinking, I'm not really comfortable where this is going on climate and other things. And yet we're not actively talking about that, because I think one of the common things about Liberals is what seems to motivate them most is the quest for power.
Yes.
And we usually don't see people leave governing parties. They usually leave opposition, and they're more interested in joining the governing party.
We have seen...
I don't know if this guy realizes that the CBC is the Liberal Broadcasting Corporation, but this is funny because listen to David Cochrane desperately try to deflect and defuse the bomb here.
I don't want to call it outbursts, but some critiques, right? Karina Gould has, expressed some concern, for example, about a pipeline. They formed an environmental caucus to raise some of those issues. But, Nate Erskine-Smith, who we had on the show last week, probably the most well-known disturber in the Liberal caucus, and even that's pretty mild, right? Like
he's disturber, but it's mild. It's mild. There's nothing really happened there. Let's go back to Chris D'Entremont and Matt Genereux. Let's talk about that stuff. Let's not talk about the Liberals or the rumors of numerous Liberals wanting to step down. No, any of that. Let's not talk about that.
About the budget video, doing the pros and cons for a budget he ultimately voted for. But even the critiques he had of it was notable because it is so rare.
Yeah, it really tells us something about Canadian politics when an MP who is known for respectful advocacy, who often still will end up voting with this party regardless, is seen as some sort of maverick. I mean, the definition of a maverick in today's politics is so much different than it was 20, 30, and 40 years ago, where you had grand, big politicians, particularly in the regions, colorful characters. We don't have regional ministers now in the way that we used to. We don't, if you were, there's been public opinion polls that say that Canadians can't even name ministers, let alone name their local representatives. Everything now seems to be about the leader. That trickles down into the messaging that everybody is told. And now we just have everybody getting elected and told, you've got to just do whatever the leader's circle tells you to do.
We saw a bit of that in the dying days of Trudeau, right? Like Wayne Long, who's now, sort of in the ministry with Mark Carney, had said he needed to go. Ken McDonald had said they would pass the best before.
Yeah, safe to name these things, Wayne Long, because now he's part of Mark Carney's caucus there. Totally fine to name that. Justin Trudeau's gone. He's very selective with his words here. David Cochrane knows what he's doing.
But it was really right up to the very end before people would truly break ranks and push, which just shows how strong it all was.
Especially when you had, an election year was coming along, they were down in the polls. I think really in many ways it the loyalty that the Liberals showed to Justin Trudeau was, to me, about the Trudeau brand more broadly. There were an awful lot of Liberals who got involved with the Liberal Party because of Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And so to go against Justin Trudeau himself would be going against your fundamental identity as a Liberal.
Okay, one last issue, just to bring it back to Chris d'Entremont, because
let's bring it back to Chris d'Entremont.
every time there's a floor crossing, and whatever the circumstances and the execution of it, there is a debate, right? People get really angry about it, or people say it's a justified choice. But there are calls for, you must sit as an independent. You should have to resign and run again. You've betrayed your party, your constituents. People want rule changes here. Does the system need rule changes around a rare political event?
I'm glad you asked, because in fact, in that research that I did with my co-authors, we came up with a suggestion, and we believe that what should happen is there should be a cooling off period. There should be rule changes that say you have to sit as an independent for a period of time. We call it two-stepping. It came from Keith Martin, the former Reform Canadian Alliance Liberal MP. Right. He used that term in an interview. Yep. And so the idea is you should have to sit as an independent for, let's say, 30 days. That would eliminate the perception that you were promised a cabinet post, you were promised some sort of inducement.
That doesn't stop anything. Go sit for 30 days, then you get your cabinet post. This is not a good idea. You should have to sit as an independent and then get reelected as the other side. Period. Or you just step down and then there's a by-election. That's it. Those should be the only options here. Jumping back to CTV. So this news going around here, Pete Hoekstra made some comments about F-35s, and then the media took it and spun it and turned it into something else. And then the U.S. Embassy had to come out and say that's not true. You had J.D. Vance come out and blast the CBC.
Yeah, Canada's going through a review of their defense industry. We need to know what it means that you're going to build a Canadian defense infrastructure.
Oh, clarity is always good. Also today, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance entered the chat, taking issue with Canada, but not over its defense policy. He posted this online. While I'm sure the causes are complicated, no nation has leaned more into diversity is our strength. We don't need a melting pot. We have a salad bowl, immigration, insanity than Canada. It has the highest foreign-born share of the population in the entire G7, and its living standards have stagnated. Vance goes on to say, and with all due respect to my Canadian friends whose politics focuses obsessively on the United States, your stagnating living standards have nothing to do with Donald Trump or whatever boogeyman the CBC tells you to blame. The fault lies with your leadership elected by you. So, Fred, things are obviously improving on the Canada-U.S. file.
Yeah, he's not going to address that CBC comment.
Look, there's the trade war that's happening. This is culture war stuff, seemingly, on immigration with J.D. Vance, just kind of out of the blue, all with defense procurement hanging over it. I mean, what do you just make of all of this happening this week?
I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that.
Laughing this one off on CBC.
Well, look, it's interesting. He says how we fixated on the U.S., and he seems quite fixated on us, to put it. He even talks about the public broadcaster. So he certainly has thoughts. I don't know why he's having.
Delory's right in there with the CBC pundits. Moving ahead, we got Mark Carney at the G20 summit. What is he achieving? Nothing. That's right, nothing. Shaking hands, more grip and grin. Here's the G20 leaders. I didn't know how to say this. Come on. This is so cringe, guys. Like, what is this? Like, okay, this is a normal photo, but I mean, holding hands, like, come on.
Your opinion of Donald Trump's peace plan, and obviously leaders, including the Prime Minister, sort of had an ad hoc meeting. And I wonder if you give us some color of what came out of that meeting.
Thank you for that question on Ukraine. Obviously, Ukraine is always top priority for us in terms of our foreign policy.
Yeah, that's about enough. Top priority. Not taking care of our own citizens that are paying taxes in Canada. Ukraine's top priority. We also have got this. Canada joins Europe rejecting Trump's Ukraine plan. So this is starting to create quite the mess. Donald Trump has proposed a 20-some-odd point peace plan for Ukraine, and, well, most of the G20 are like, no.
Well, this G20 summit is unique for a few reasons. First of all, it's the first time in the 26-year history of G20s that leaders are meeting on this continent, the first time in Africa. It's also unique because it's the first G20 where the leaders of the three biggest economies are not present. No Russia, of course, no China, and The United States President Donald Trump, he's not here. He's boycotting the summit because he believes a genocide is being perpetrated against the white farmers of South Africa. He's wrong. That's a false claim, but that's Trump's belief.
I'm sorry, what? Here we got a news broadcast in South Africa. Sounds a lot like what we've got going on in Canada.
So deep into history, you've taken us back to the 17th century. In that case, shouldn't everybody leave the property to the Khoisan, who are thought to be the native occupants of South Africa?
No, actually, Africa and South Africa, it belongs to the Bantu people. It belongs to the Ngunis. So it belongs to the people of Africa.
What about Tavy here?
We are not saying it doesn't belong here. Now that we are living together here, our perspective is that the land must go back to the chiefs, the traditional leaders, and the state. We are unapologetic about this. Land must be expropriated without compensation.
And so deep into...
This does not sound exactly what's going on with the Cowichan land seizures. It's the same thing going on in South Africa, except they're ending the farmers. I dug into this one a while ago, but this video going around here says 4,000 white farmers have been ended since 1994, and it hasn't been that many. There isn't one cross as far as I can tell from researching this. There's not one cross for every farmer, but it's to represent all farmers, and it's not all white farmers, but there are a lot of white farmers being ended. The numbers are not nearly as high as that, though. It's in the hundreds, multiple hundreds, 400 or 500. I mean, there's literally rallies that say, pew pew to end, pew pew the farmer.
Hey, come on, son. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor.
So Boer, that word he's saying is this one, B-O-E-R, K-I-L-L, the boer, K-I-L-L, the farmer. There's literally a stadium of people chanting, and to say this doesn't exist at all on global news is disingenuous. We got this article here. I'm not going to say that out again, but this obviously stirred up Elon Musk. This is back just a few months ago because he's from South Africa. Boer is an Afrikaans word for farmer on one level. It simply means farmer. So it's not white. It's not anything else. It's farmer.
Of South Africa summit because he believes a genocide is being perpetrated against the white farmers of South Africa. He's wrong. That's a false claim, but that's Trump's belief.
Is global news telling the truth here? You decide.
And yet, even though Trump is absent, he's really dominated the first few hours of the summit because of this peace plan that he wants to force on Ukraine. That peace plan was leaked yesterday, 28 points in it, and Trump has said that unless Zelensky, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, accepts this peace plan by Thursday, the U.S. may be looking at withdrawing military aid. For Zelensky, he says this is the most serious moment in Ukrainian history. The peace plan would call for Ukraine to give up large chunks of the eastern part of its country to Russia. It would call on the Ukraine military to be weakened, and it would call on Ukraine to swear off joining NATO. Those are all non-starters for Ukraine. They're also non-starters for many of Ukraine's allies, Canada included. And so Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is stepping away from the summit activity to meet with European Council President Antonio Costa, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, French President Emmanuel Macron, and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. They'll all be stepping away to talk about how they can support Zelensky through this week ahead, what to do if, in fact, the U.S. decides to pull military aid. Ukraine and the war there has forced its way onto a summit, which ostensibly was going to be about development, the global south, new trade ties, etc. There will be that talk. But again, Ukraine has forced its way onto the agenda of this G20 summit.
Yeah, this whole Ukraine conflict thing, it's got to end. It has to end. I said a year and a half ago, they need to carve off a section of Ukraine and just be done with it. And then if Ukraine wants to build up their military and build up some pow-pows and go back over there and sucker punch them when they don't expect it, then go get their land back when they have the power. But there's no point losing all your 19-year-olds in your country, all your 20, 21, 22-year-olds, just having them all wiped out, devastating the population growth of the country. And it's on both sides, Russia too. Both countries are screwed now. They've lost all their young men.
Prime Minister Mark Carney has just met with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Now, Carney welcomed the face-to-face meeting and said discussions on trade matters were moving along well, but there were also pressing geopolitical issues to tackle. Here is some of that conversation between the two leaders.
One of the things I'd just underscore more broadly is that the leadership you've had with President Macron of the Coalition of the Willing, of which Canada is a part, is an important component of the potential and necessary peace process.
Carney, along with more than a dozen world leaders meeting in South Africa, issued a joint statement saying U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to end the war in Ukraine will require additional work. CBC's Ashley Burke is there and brings us the latest details.
Prime Minister Mark Carney and a group of a dozen world leaders here at the G20 issued a joint statement aimed at Donald Trump. The U.S. president isn't here. He's boycotting this summit over his issues with South Africa. The leader's statement says that Trump's plan to end the war in Ukraine requires additional work. His plan includes calling on Kyiv to cede territory, accept limits to the size of its military, and not to join NATO. Those are long-standing Kremlin demands. The leader's statement says that borders must not be changed by force and that limiting Ukraine's military would leave it vulnerable to future attack.
So this is what they're proposing, is handing this land over to Russia, and then they can't join NATO. They can't grow their military, I believe, over 600,000 people. They have to do something to end this and then build up, go back, take out Putin, wipe it all out if they want to go that route and get their land back later. But I mean, it's already obliterated and destroyed. There's no point losing more young lives. It's just not worth it.
If any Ukrainian leader were to sign up for even a part of this so-called plan, it would be the end of Ukraine as we know it. Game over for a sovereign Ukraine.
Carney posted online that Trump's 28-point plan also includes important elements that will be essential for a just and lasting peace. The prime minister met with these other countries to talk about Ukraine on the sidelines of the summit after Ukraine's president warned his country is facing one of the most difficult moments in its history. In an address to the nation on Friday, Volodymyr Zelensky said that he's under intense pressure after Trump gave him a deadline of until next week to accept his plan or keep fighting. Zelensky described it as a choice between losing dignity or risking losing a key partner. Canada's foreign affairs minister is here and says decisions relating to Ukraine rest with that country.
Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries on earth. Our money goes there and it absolutely disappears. Is it going to the front lines? Is it going to help people? Is it going to rebuilding? Is it going to do all this stuff? Or is it just going into Zelensky's bank account? Ukraine on the corruption index here is a 35 out of 100, ranked 105 out of 180 countries here. That's terrible. If we look on the world map here, Ukraine right there. So it's, you can see it's well below half. Russia comes in at 22. Canada is at 75. It used to be at 90, 95, something like that. America has dropped down to 65. The highest rated countries here, Finland, Sweden, Norway, 80, 81, 88, and Switzerland, 81. The corruption over there is rampant.